Okay, so let's add some code to that will allow us to calibrate our sensor. So now we're still inside of our setup function, and typically this runs once. Whatever we put in here runs once, but what we're going to put inside of here is a loop, a while loop. Okay, so the while loop itself will run once, but we can specify certain conditions for this while loop to run, and certain conditions have to be met before it stops. Yes. So while, I'll put a space, open parentheses, and then millis, and then open parentheses, close parentheses, nothing in between, space, um, the less than symbol, 5,000. So that's 5 seconds. It's going to run for 5 seconds. Space, and then open curly bracket. And come down, give myself another line. Now sensor value. That will be equal to analog read. And what are we reading? Remember our photoresistor is plugged into A0, but we did not give A0 another name, another constant, and so we just left it as A0. So whatever is plugged into A0 is going to be read, and that'll be our sensor value. Okay. If we would have said, okay, up here in this particular code, A0 is equal to, you know, whatever we want to call it, then that's what that name that we called it would be inside the parentheses. But we didn't call it anything, so we left it as A0. And then semicolon. Then if space, open parentheses, sensor value is greater than sensor high, close parentheses, open curly bracket, sensor high is equal to sensor value, semicolon. Okay, so what does this mean? Basically, if the sensor value here, that's going to be read off pin A0. If that sensor value is greater than what we said is sensor high, and what we said is sensor high is 0. So if it's greater than 0, then the sensor high will be equivalent to the to our sensor value. Okay, so we're making a comparison. If we get anything higher than this, then that will be the number that we're going to use. So then another line of code here. Actually, let me back up. I need to make sure that, let's see, there's a bracket. Let's do this. Go down, add a close bracket in the space, then if. There we go. Space, sensor value is, now we want the less than sensor low, close parentheses. Oops. Make sure there's a open parentheses there. Space, bracket, sensor low equal to Looks like that's it. And the same thing will happen here for our the upper end. So if it's anything lower than this number here, 1023 on that sensor, that will record it as our sensor value. So let's say we get 1020. Okay, that will be what's recorded as our sensor value, and that'll be used. Those numbers will be used later on in our loop function um, to scale, like for the frequency, to create a scale for our frequency. So let's actually, before we move on to the loop, let's write one more line of code here in our setup, and that is digital. When all of this is done, digital write, open parentheses, and then LED pin, comma, low. So when all this is done, we want that LED to turn off. And I know that we've added a lot of open and closing curly brackets here. If they're, you have to have the same amount of opening as closing curly brackets. When we go to upload this, if we don't have the right amount, it'll indicate in orange down here, and we just go back and add or take away what we need.